If you've been staring at your ever-growing light novel back catalogue, just wondering what to read next, I got you. Here is what I've been reading, and whether or not they're worth your time. The first title we're going to talk about today is Secrets of the Silent Witch, and yet there's an anime, I think as I record this, it's due out tonight. And is it worth reading? Honestly, I'm enjoying it. Now, this is an interesting one for me because a lot of people really hyped this one up a few years ago, and I read volume 1, and if I'm honest, I was a little bit unsure. So this tells the story of the Silent Witch, a witch so extraordinarily powerful she can do magic without having to do chants. However, nobody's ever seen what she actually looks like. This brings us to Monica, who is in reality the Silent Witch, and she is being given a task by the barrier mage, and that is to infiltrate a school, become one of its students, and protect the Crown Prince. Now, this is an interesting one because there's a lot going on here, and I like a lot of it, and I don't like some of it. If I'm absolutely honest, some of the stuff between Monica and the Prince and the other guys, I'm going to be honest, I have no interest in. It's just another reverse harem setting, and it's not really done interestingly. But what this series excels at is Monica herself. The reason why she is the Silent Witch is because, well, honestly, she struggles with interacting with people. And those interactions are what make the series. The harem stuff, not so much, but the actual genuine interactions between her, the Prince, a lot of her classmates, and even her own cat are fantastic. If you like series such as Bocce the Rock and Watamote, where you want a girl who is very uncomfortable with being herself but is over time starting to become better, is showing her actual skills, this one is for you. Remember when I mentioned the Barrier Master? Well, Yen Press were kind enough to send me a review copy of Secrets of the Silent Witch, Rise of the Barrier Master Volume 1, and this is interesting because the original Silent Witch is kind of reserved, it's kind of about kind of day-to-day student life. This is also the same, but it's more energetic, it's more over the top. This is about the Barrier Master, Lewis, and how he goes on from being basically, how do you see it? Kind of just like a poor kid with no aspirations to becoming one of the most powerful mages in history. And this one goes from 0 to 100 very fast. Whereas Silent Witch is very much kind of having the very much day-to-day, very slow-paced stuff, obviously over a few weeks. This is very much over a few years in one volume. There's a very nice romance between the main character and another character, which I really enjoyed, and honestly it's one that I felt excelled, considering how much I was kind of like, I'm not so much focused on interested in the kind of relationship between Monica and the Prince. This one just knocks it out of the park in how enjoyable the characters are. In fact, I would go as to say I prefer this one in terms of its character building and world development compared to the original series, but that might just be me. It might just be that it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit more fast-paced than the other one, but it's a bit more actiony too. I think it's a fantastic companion piece, and honestly, it's one of those ones where if you read this and kind of you would expect something different from Silent Witch as a whole, but I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Well, we're going to talk once again about more witches, and I read volume 15 of Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elena. Now, this is an interesting one because I would kind of argue this is kind of like, I wouldn't say a stopping point, but this is an interesting point because this is basically a collection of short stories that take place between volumes 1 to 14. Now, Wandering Witch tells the story of Elena, a young, inexperienced mage who was going from city to city, from country to country, very much like Kino's journey. And it's her experiences between her and other witches, the townsfolk, and a lot of the time weird stuff happens. A lot of the time there tends to be a twist in every single chapter, and this is very much a companion piece to it. I would argue maybe it should have been a spin-off one, but it's been compiled as a bunch of short stories. But honestly, I really like this one. I know a lot of people have issues with Elena as a character because, let's face it, in the first few volumes she is very mean. I would say mean. She is definitely a flawed character, but over the time she has kind of matured a little bit. She's doing a little bit less childish things and genuinely helping out. There's definitely a few chapters in the first few volumes where she's kind of just like, oh well, I'm just doing it for money, and this is kind of still a thing, but there is genuinely a part where she's kind of like more interested in people rather than interested in their money. I really enjoyed Wandering Witch. It's one of those series that I just took a gamble on a few years back, but has really paid off over the years. And volume 15, it was a nice volume. I just hope there's not a huge wait for volume 16 because, yeah, I love this series a lot. Next up is another volume sent to me by Yen Press for review purposes, and that is The Girl Who Wants to Be the Hero and The Girl Who Ought to Be a Hero. Now, this is a Yuri title, and it doesn't feel like a Yuri title. Now, I'm going to be honest, I have read a lot of titles about protagonists going to a magic school. Silent Witch is another one. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of that premise, and that's the only reason being is because I feel like I've seen it that many times and that many series have done it well. There are a lot of series that kind of don't do it well, and this one's kind of that one. Now, this one is kind of another one of your very plucky protagonist who is just working really hard and wants to be the hero, goes to magic school, befriends a bunch of girls, falls in love potentially with a girl. Yeah, it's fine. That's all I kind of really can see about it. There wasn't really anything that kind of grabbed me with it, but it wasn't bad either. It was a fun little title, but I don't know, I kind of hyped myself up a little bit too much for this one, considering how much I enjoyed some previous Yuri works. But this one, it kind of felt just like your typical plucky protagonist goes to magic school, befriends all of them, and is really, really trying. Whereas we've got Silent Witch, we've got Ascendance of a Bookworm, we've got Reign of the Seven Spellblades, which kind of do that, but all the more better. The twist is with this one, the protagonist's a girl, and it's got a little bit more Yuri stuff. It's fine. It's a fun little in-between light novel, I would say. Well, we spoke about Ascendance of a Bookworm just previously, so let's have a quick mini review of Ascendance of a Bookworm. I am still so far behind on this series. Now, this is part 5, volume 7, and so every time I've mentioned that I've been reading Ascendance of a Bookworm, people have went, oh, you know, you'll get to a certain point and then it'll kind of just, everything will just go boom, click, and then you won't want to put it down. And while I've enjoyed part 5, it kind of, I was like waiting for this point. I was waiting for that point to happen. And that happens in this volume. So Ascendance of a Bookworm is about a young, poor girl called Mine. So in her past life, she was obsessed with books. She gets crushed by books and ends up reborn as a very poor, sickly child. As the series has gone along, she has basically ended up being taken in by the church, being adopted, and ends up going to magic school. And yeah, I really love this series. This is easily my favourite light novel, and it just continues to blow me out of the water. The first few volumes people aren't a huge fan of, but I like it. I think it sets up everything. I think we get a lot of... It's slightly different points of view, but it's all by our main protagonist. So, of course, when our main protagonist is sickly and unwell, she's not going to be able to do much. As the series goes on, she becomes, well, basically as we see in this kind of volume subtitle, Avatar of a Goddess, she becomes basically an inspiration for people, for the poor, for the wealthy, and everyone in between. However, it's all about her just trying to acquire books and live a peaceful life reading books. I love this series. It's one of those ones where we're kind of at a point now where 2 or 3 minutes is not going to cut a good synopsis of it. Honestly, it is easily the best light novel out there. It's very well defined. Its world building is absolutely fantastic. It is just a fantastic read from start to finish. Next up, we have a triple whammy, and that is the Full Metal Panic short story collection. Now, this is volume 1. I am very well aware that I am behind. I think volume 3, which might finish it off, comes out later this year. And yeah, I got to volume 1, and the reason being, there's 3 volumes in one. Now, Full Metal Panic is an interesting one because it starts off as kind of like a mix between high school romance, slice of life, mixed in with sci-fi and mechs. As the initial series kind of continues along, it phases out the high school aspect of things. However, there is the Full Metal Panic short stories, and if you know the anime, this is the Fumofu arc. So this is the Fumofu short stories that were adapted into the second season of the anime. So what happened with the anime, there was Full Metal Panic, then Full Metal Panic Fumofu, which is these, and then Full Metal Panic the second raid and the 4th one, which I can't remember what it's called, but that basically takes you more or less up to volume 9 of the main series. They never finished it, and yeah, it gets really exciting. Honestly, Full Metal Panic is the series that got me into anime. It's the series that got me into light novels. So being able to relive this one and have a really good time with these short stories, because honestly, I'm going to be honest, I love comedy, but there aren't a huge amount of light novels that make me laugh. This one is still hilarious. If you like the Fumofu short stories in the anime, this one is a must read. It'll take you back to that great time of, well, Fumofu, along with a bunch of stories that weren't adapted into the anime. Yes! So you're getting even more. So this one is basically the first 3 volumes, and yeah, it takes up a bunch. I think it's like the first half of basically Fumofu, so I'm not sure if the later short stories are going to be different, but this is basically Sasuke and Kaname at school, over the top hijinks, and very over the top stuff. This is kind of stuff like training a rugby squad via military warfare, or in fact pretty much everything's military warfare. Like, there's one chapter where Sasuke and Kaname have a bit of a spat on like the summer vacation, and she goes and hangs out with this other guy, and then she's in a bit of a bad mood. She's just like, oh, I don't want to see Sasuke. So Sasuke literally just kind of like takes like basically like a shotgun with full of beanbags and just basically just raids this house to save her, and he's like, she's in trouble, and she's just kind of like, no, I just didn't want to see you. Honestly, it is a fantastic series. It introduces Bonta-kun, which basically became his own thing with a Magi Brilliant Park. Honestly, if you want a comedy light novel, this one must be on your list. It is easily one of the best series out there. Last but in no means least, we have what is possibly one of the best new light novels this year, and a huge thanks to Yen Press for sending me a review copy. That title is Who Killed the Hero? Now, this is going to be an interesting one because this one was really, and I mean really, hyped up on its upcoming release, and honestly, I was intrigued. So how do I explain this one? Well, This one is an interviewer interviewing the hero's friends and family to try and get down to the fact that the hero disappeared after killing the demon lord. Now, this was interesting because everybody, and I mean, I'm assuming more or less everybody, kind of assumed this would be a murder mystery, but it's kind of not. This is about what it takes to be a hero, how someone can become a hero, and the hero's interactions with his, well, soon-to-be friends. And what I loved about this one, especially the first half, was that kind of, it was interviewing different characters, and they were kind of just like, oh, they kind of give like a positive, an interviewer response to that. But then in the next one, we kind of got to see the hero's point of view of his interactions with this person, and then we got their interaction, their point of view with this hero. And I don't know, it's really interesting how it's different points of view, how different people look upon this person who is the hero, and what was behind the death of this hero. And it's a bit of a weird one because it was portrayed, and even the synopsis kind of reads as it being a murder mystery. It's kind of not. I feel like it was fairly predictable, and before it even reveals the outcome, you kind of have guessed it. But then it kind of continues for another half a volume, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but it's one that I would see as very difficult to explain. It's one that I kind of feel like the more I talk about it, the more I'm just going to end up just spoiling the entire thing, because this is a one-shot series and there's only like 200 pages of that, so it's one of those ones where the twist kind of comes halfway through. So I'm going to definitely say read it. It is a fantastic read. It is still very interesting. I love the dynamic between these different characters, and the hero himself is very interesting. But just don't go in expecting it to be a murder mystery and that kind of aspect, and the blame to be pinned on someone. No, this is a bunch of interviews between different people, and how people put on masks for interviews and be completely different to how they genuinely are. It's a very good reading, and potentially one of the best titles for this year. I'm going to be that blunt, I'm going to be that honest. I would probably say it's a top 3 contender. Very, very good title, and huge thanks to Yen Press for sending this, Silent Witch, and the other titles for review. So that's a bunch of light novels that I have been reading and recommending to you guys. What have you been reading? Let me know in the comments, and if you did like this, leave a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it, and I'll see you for more light novel reviews. See you later.